Well, you do have a lot of wisdom that you share. How did you gain this wisdom and knowledge that you share on your channel?
Crazy enough, I just recently told this story like on my platforms, but when I was younger, I was like 12 or 13, I was diagnosed with premature ovarian failure. So at that time, that doctor told me that I couldn't have kids. And so, I talked about this in the way of like, at that age, you think that your womanhood is characterized by pregnancy and your body, and that's what we're sold. So at that time, definitely didn't have no body, and now I'm being told that I can't get pregnant. And so I think that took away the blanket that a lot of women feel like we're able to stay under, of feeling like, oh, I'm a woman because I have a body and because I can get pregnant. And I had to find out what womanhood really meant to me. And so I spent a lot of my teen years reading and crying and healing and going on a journey of unlearning what is taught to us as young women in society. And then 10 years later, I went and got a second opinion, and that doctor was like, oh no, your first doctor was wrong. And so that once again like pulled the rug out from under me. And so I think I learned a lot of the things that I've learned because I haven't been able to just coast as a woman. I've had to figure out how to survive as a woman and what that definition truly is to me. So I think that's probably where a lot of that came from.
Wow, that is so deep.
Yeah.
So you were told that you weren't able to have children. So you had to figure out, okay, then am I even a woman? How
Right.
am I going to embrace my womanhood without this huge piece that society says makes you a woman? And then you found out that you actually can have children, but at that point, you'd already gone through this process. So it was really like God using this to create a stronger version of yourself in a way.
Yeah, no, for years I was so bitter about it, and I was so upset, and I was jealous of other women. And I felt like, especially with something like fertility, because you can't see that at the naked eye, right? There could have been a lot of girls around me dealing with, the same diagnosis, and I wouldn't know that. So I felt so alone. It's only me. I'm so much less than everyone else. And it was making me such a bitter, insecure person. And then as time went on, I, got the second diagnosis, and I was yelling and crying at God, like, why? This is such a cruel joke. It took so many years away from me of joy, of innocence. I felt like I was 13 going on 30. And then I prayed, and I feel like I truly healed and realized that it didn't happen to me. It happened for me, because that pause really forced me to dig into myself, dig into what femininity is, what is womanhood, what are all the things that, society says that we are or what we should be. And I think it made me such a stronger woman, such a better woman, I feel much more confident in who I am outside of external validation now. And I think that that's something that I try to teach and instill in my audience, because it's not common. A lot of women are walking around feeling very insecure. And I feel like that's where society wants us to be. We're more pliable that way. So
that is true.
Trying to take the veil off, of misogyny in today's society. But yeah, I definitely think God put me on a pause for a purpose.
He definitely did. And you're fulfilling. What is your idea now of femininity?
I think femininity is whatever you make it. So I think the cool thing about women is that we are not a monolith. So I think, some women might express their femininity in the way of even how you're dressed right now, right? Maybe like a flowy dress, or like the makeup, or, feeling dainty as a woman, feeling, just floating, you know what I mean? Just coasting because we can,
Right.
Just living and existing in our beauty and in different ways like that. Or someone can feel feminine in the way that they are nurturing, right? So that's a lot of the ways that I feel feminine. I'm a super nurturing person. I'm super empathetic. I'm compassionate. And I think those are super feminine traits. I think the masculinity comes in with the aggression and, the defensiveness, the protection, the guardedness. And I think the beauty in femininity is not having to do that and still being strong. I think I've seen something that you talked about with femininity and weakness and how it's not a weakness.
Yes.
And I totally agree. And I think for me, that's how I express my femininity. But other women can express it in whatever way that they so choose. And I don't think we should all be forced into a box, because I know what that feels like. And it's not one thing. Femininity isn't just, getting your nails done. Femininity isn't being nurturing. It's all of those things. It's which one you want. It's whichever one that you feel like you embody the most. I think you should. And I don't think you have to pick one.
No, you're right. And I think that's why so many women feel inauthentic in their femininity, because they feel like they have to be this one way. They have to dress like a super girly, or they have to get their nails done. And I definitely think that women should put love into themselves in all ways.
Right.
But there's not a certain box you have to be in. And when you do that, I feel that that's when you start feeling inauthentic to who you really are. And
Yeah.
then you can't keep it up. And you're constantly comparing or like becoming jealous of other people who you think are doing it more naturally.
Right.
And those inner traits are way more important
Yes.
than how you dress.
Speak on it.
That's truly what it means to be feminine, what you said.
I think a lot of times we get so focused on how we appear that we end up losing what femininity to me really is. I think it is the softness and just existing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we skip that, we're missing the present, we're missing the now, we're missing that part of femininity. We're planning for the future, we're planning ahead. That's really more masculine, traits, where it's so much living in the future, guardedness, trying to protect, all of those things. No, we have to let all of that go. And I think if more women focused on their inner traits, it would actually end up just exuding on the outside rather than having to put so much effort into it. I think femininity is effortless. But
you are so wise. No, you are so wise. I love what you just said right now about just existing.
yeah,
That is truly the cornerstone of femininity. It's like you're not necessarily having to do, you are just being. And
Yes.
if people would just exist in their lives, they would be much more fulfilled,
yes,
and not feeling like they have to do anything.
period. You speaking on it too. You know what you're talking about.
Which, being in relationships at a point in time where you were feeling like you weren't what you felt was like whole as a woman, how did that affect your dating relationships? Because you spend a lot of time creating content on dating.
Yeah.
It's really, really good content. It's very helpful. But when you were dating, did you start to ever feel like any resentment towards men, or any like maybe not feeling like enough because a man may want this from you? Or did you even feel like you were giving away your body more easily, knowing that you couldn't get pregnant anyway?
Right.
And so you could be a little bit more promiscuous and just kind of like conquer men in a way?
Yeah. So I went through, I think because this happened to be so young, it was right at that stage where like sexuality starts coming up and, people start losing their virginities and having that conversation. And so I actually was terrified, to do that, because I felt like, I don't know, I felt like something was wrong with me. Something was wrong with my body. I felt really insecure. So I was more so the other end of the sexuality, where I was like hyposexual in a way, where I really didn't want to do that. And then as time went on, I think I just always had this little glimmer in the back of my head, like, but what if? Like, what if God plays another cruel, sick joke on you and it happens? You know what I mean? And so I think I was I wasn't just existing, and so I robbed myself of, feeling strong in my sexuality, feeling strong in who I was. So I definitely was on the other end, but I definitely did experience the not feeling enough. I definitely feel like I chose people because of that void. I was looking for that void to be filled. I was picking men that made me feel like enough. I wanted to be picked by the guy that wanted every girl, you know what I mean? Because I wanted to be the one that he chose. Like, I wanted to be enough. I wanted to feel like I had something over everyone else, because this guy can have any guy he wants in the world, but he chose me. And that made me feel good in that time, even though he wasn't ish,
right.
But it made me feel good. And I think I overlooked a lot of red flags, because instead of focusing on someone who, made me feel enough because of who I was looking for men that really didn't feel enough themselves. And so we're looking for that in me. And I think I gave a lot of my love away, a lot of my femininity away, a lot of my nurturing away to people who did not deserve it, because it made me feel good just to have somebody. And I overlooked everything that they were or everything that they weren't, because they're just a body and a place for me. You know what I mean? And I really was against like different people and different things. I wanted one person that was mine, because I think when the diagnosis came, I felt like I was never going to keep a man. A man would never stay with me because what's going to happen if I can't have his kids? You know, I'm not going to have that fairy tale ending. So I was constantly searching for that. So I was in a super long-term relationship that I knew I shouldn't have been in, you know, but I held on because I'm like, see, look, this is my fairy tale, you know, and I was holding on to that. And when it ended, I got over it relatively quickly, and people in my life were like, girl, you was with this man for how long? And it was just like, because it wasn't that I was in love with a person, it was more so I was in love with what a person was doing for me, what void that person was filling for me. And I did that, and I did that, and I did that until I was able to put that label on it and realize, like, hold on. You're not really experiencing love for what it is. You're cheapening yourself. You're robbing yourself of what you can actually have. And so, yeah, I definitely went through that period of not feeling enough and choosing men that probably didn't feel enough themselves.
It's amazing that you were able to realize that those men had that issue, because sometimes that is difficult to see when you're just looking at the glitz and like, this really attractive, popular guy wants me and, you know, I have him. It's hard to see that brokenness until you spend enough time with them and you start realizing those traits are there.